So one of the aspects people commonly don't think about or is commonly overlooked are the effect of taxes on your retirement. Because people do their little projections outward. Oh, this is how much I'm going to be able to withdraw in, down the line in retirement. But then they either don't take taxes into account, or when they do, it's a fixed tax rate that doesn't change throughout their retirement. Well, I can tell you, taxes are not a fixed item. And that's why this is such a big hole, because most people I sit with don't have a plan for taxes. And so they're opening themselves up to what we call tax risk. Because if your retirement projection, your retirement scenario works, meaning you don't run out of money, if that works with a 15% effective tax rate, and then all of a sudden your effective tax rate jumps up to 30%, that plan may not work anymore. And there's a lot of clients and there's a lot of advisors who do not take that into account, or as I said, they'll take into account that fixed rate. Well, here's the problem with that. As you can see here, we're in quite a bit of national debt, and that goes up every second. How are they going to pay that off? Yes, by raising taxes. Now, to that, I know there's a lot of you out there that will say something along the lines of, oh, they're just going to keep printing money. Trust me, they're going to raise taxes. And we know this. We know taxes are going up because in 2026, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act goes away. Taxes go up. What does that all mean? Well, current tax law is based on a bill that was passed by Congress, it's signed by the president, called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That bill is in effect from 2018 to 2025. What that bill did, it essentially cut the tax rates that were in effect. Well, get to 2026, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires, which means taxes are going up. We don't need a new bill for that to happen. We don't need an executive order. That's actually the default. We would actually need a new bill or executive order to stop this from happening. And so, you need to be asking yourself, what is my plan for not just these tax hikes in 2026, but going forward? Because as I mentioned before, tax rates are not fixed. They change over time. Highest tax bracket was as much as 94% in the 1940s. And it was as low as 28% from 1988 to 1992. People think the taxes now are the lowest. They're not. There was a random 4-year period, 88 to 92, where the top tax rate was 28. Today in 2024, top tax rate is 37, and then there's all other ways where you could potentially get a little higher. And so having a plan for this and any other tax hikes in the future is kind of important. So that gets to the next question that I know you have, which is, all right, well, how do we fix this? How do I protect myself against potential tax hikes? Well, that is a question with many answers because everybody's situation is different. And where your money is situated is going to determine a lot of what the best strategy is for you. Let me go into a little bit of what I mean by that. So let's say I'm 61 years old. And let's say I've got 100% of my money in a traditional IRA. Well, the options to you there are you're really the only way, or shouldn't say the only way, but the only way that's probably going to make sense is to potentially do Roth conversions. What is that? That's when you take your money from a traditional IRA, transfer it to a Roth IRA, which means tax-free. Now, there are pros and cons of doing Roth conversions. The pro is that you have protection from future tax hikes because anything in that account is withdrawn tax-free. All right, there's always got to be a give and take. What is the con? Well, the con is that any money that is transferred or converted from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA will then appear on your ordinary income tax for the year. So if I convert $100,000 this year from traditional to Roth, well, on my ordinary income, it's going to show that I had an additional $100,000 of income. So the way to do this is we want to do enough that it's actually going to move the needle, but not too much that it's going to destroy us in taxes now, which defeats the whole purpose. Because when we're doing this, really, it is a bit of a math game in that obviously we want to pay less taxes total taxes by converting than we would if we just kept our money in a traditional IRA, or else what is even the point, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing enough to move the needle, because if I'm going to convert $2,000 a year, who cares? What's the point? That's not even going to make a difference. But not too much that we destroy ourselves in taxes now, because there's actually a lot of negative consequences to that as well, other than just the tax bill itself. And so that's why we're doing this. The other thing is also we are buying ourselves some protection. And so we're not just converting, all right, yes, we're converting, we want this to be tax-free, but we're also ensuring that this money, we know what it's being taxed at, because we're doing it now, or over 5 years. We have a pretty confident idea of the rate of tax we're going to pay. Whereas let's say we don't convert anything. Let's say we leave everything in a traditional IRA. Well, what happens if the United States goes to, and I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but it's true, British tax rates. Want to see what the UK tax brackets are? Pretty crazy. You make 37,000 pounds, you're paying 40%. In the US, you'd pay 12 to 18. So there's other countries where they have these rates already. And so what we want to do is buy protection so that if we're at a 12% rate, we want to make sure all of a sudden, if the U.S. enacts English-style taxes, we want to make sure we're not paying 40% now, because there's a high chance that'll devastate your plan. And so Roth conversions, especially if you have all your money in a traditional IRA, Roth conversions are one of the more popular ways to do that. The question, obviously, with that, everybody's got in a different situation. How much should I do? Well, that is more for a personal, private conversation, because there's no one set amount that works for everybody. Now, the other question that I know is out there, that I can see is out there. All right, Tyler, I don't have any money in an IRA, but I have $1 million in a non-qualified, non-retirement brokerage account that's at Vanguard or Schwab or Fidelity. What do I do then? Well, there's really a couple ways you can go with that. And so we don't want to get too bogged down in the weeds, because the scenarios are really there's so many different scenarios out there. So one of them is you can buy municipal bonds. What are municipal bonds? You live in Florida, you live in Tampa, you buy a Hillsborough County bond. Any of the interest on those bonds are totally tax-free. So you could have those in, I have a client who has a ladder of these municipal bonds, and he's making like $150,000 a year tax-free just from the interest. Now, the downside with that is bonds have not been great lately, but if you are comfortable with holding the bonds to maturity and you're just happy with the income, then they're perfectly fine. The other way, which sometimes people call a super Roth, is utilizing indexed universal life. Now, the thing to understand here is this is life insurance. This is not a security. This is life insurance. So using this, you could essentially buy a policy, you contribute over 4 years or however much, And then year 5, you can start to pull income and you can start to pull it tax-free. Well, can be a good scenario. The problem is with these policies, there are a lot of bad products. I'll just put that out there where you don't really grow. The money you're pulling out is kind of just ends up being your own money that you put in anyway. So this is one way to do it, and it can make sense. I usually caution people, we don't want to do any more than 10 to 20% of your net worth in one of these, because here's why. And I'm a straight shooter. I'll tell you the pros and the cons of everything. So let's say we're doing a 4-pay. Let's say we're doing $100,000, just for easy math, over 4 years. So that's $25,000 a year. Let's say after year 2, so I've contributed $50,000, 25 and 25. After year 2, I don't want to contribute year 3 or year 4 anymore. What is that? What happens then? Well, the policy lapses and the surrender charge is 100%. So congrats, you just lost $50,000. You just lost $50,000. So what I tell people is, listen, if you're going to do this, you are committing to putting that amount in every year. If we're doing a 4-pay over 4 years, if we're doing a 5-pay over 5 years. You have to do it, and this is what's going to happen if you stop in the middle. Are you okay with that? So I think this can be a good piece to a puzzle. Again, I wouldn't do more than 10 to 20% of net worth in that. And 20% itself is even a little high, because this is not going to be liquid for 4 or 5 years. But if you don't have any IRAs or anything of that sort, and you're wanting to get some tax-free income or some tax protection down the road, this can be a pretty good option for you. But, as always, make sure you're understanding really the pros and the cons of everything. But kind of bring it back around. If you don't have a tax plan and taxes go up, what's going to have you actually tested your scenario to know, okay, if they double taxes, I'm still going to make it? Because I know I have the software, I've done the analysis, and I've seen a lot of people who, if taxes go up even 20%, they're not going to make it. It's that close. And so this is something a lot of advisors don't talk about. In my opinion, they're not really doing their jobs. Something to really just keep an eye on. As always, we've got a link in the description. We do, for a limited time, we do these consultation calls, 30 minutes usually, where we go over your situation and really to see if we can help you. We can't help everybody. That's natural. Some people have situations that can't be fixed. Other people have situations where we're like, wow, this is right now easy. So leave any comments in the description. And as always, like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks for watching.